Hey, what up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. It's your boy Will coming at y'all once again. This is where we get into the entire multiverse of pop culture and every corner of it: music, anime, TV shows, video games. We talk about it around these parts. So make sure you're clicking all the buttons below the video and showing that support. And we appreciate all the love and all the interaction we've been getting on the channel. It is very, very much appreciated. And we are going to finally continue after some fucking crazy ass technical difficulties I've been having over the past weekend, getting sick and all this other shit. Now we are back at it. Loki, season 2. Let's fucking run it. Loki season 2, episode 3. Better late than never. It's time to get into it. This has been one of my most anticipated MCU projects post Phase 4, bar none, almost as much as even Secret Wars and crazy shit like that. I absolutely love the Loki series, my favorite Disney Plus series from the MCU as we know it, and overall one of my favorite TV shows of the last few years. I really thought season 1 was amazing, and season 2 so far has not been quite as good, but I will say episode 3 does take a step in the right direction of getting a lot closer to it. But I did have some issues with this episode overall and didn't necessarily love it. But I did enjoy it and do have a lot of positive things to say. So kind of getting into my overall thoughts on the episode as a whole, I thought it was really fun. I thought it was really good overall, very solid. Felt much more closer to the tone and to the overall vibe and the overall storytelling kind of the storytelling kind of mechanisms and kind of format that they had in the previous season. I kind of felt like these first 2 episodes were a little bit wonky, didn't quite feel as dialed in as season 1, and did feel different. And while you want your seasons to stand apart from each other, like sequels and film and things of that nature, I do think it felt a little too far away from it, just a little bit. This one feels a little bit much more in line with what we've come to expect from the Loki series, so that was very much more enjoyable for me. Having Loki and Mobius's like kind of dynamic at the forefront of the episode, while also diving into the deeper story of what this is all about with Ravonna Renslayer and Victor Timely, that with that version of Kang the Conqueror, if you will, and kind of continuing that storyline and addressing the main A plot of the series, I thought was very, very well done. And overall, I enjoyed a lot of what they kind of brought to the table in that way for the episode. It was just a few aspects of that in the B plot overall where I thought the episode was just a little bit more clunky, and I thought the pacing was still just a little bit off. But I was a little confused by a couple elements of the plot by the end of the episode. But overall, I really did enjoy this episode and have a lot of good things to say about it. And we'll kind of go through the episode recap style as we normally do. And I'll get into all the stuff I dug about it, all the stuff I didn't like about it, and all that good jazz. And if I remember correctly, let me just check here. I believe we begin the episode with Ravonna Renslayer going back to the 1600s. Oh, shit. Didn't tighten that. That's good stuff. But yeah, we go back to the 1600s where Ravonna Renslayer is meeting up with Miss Minutes, and this is the first time we've seen Miss Minutes in the season. So that's a big deal, and she's gone completely rogue, and Loki, Mobius, and everyone in the TVA is hot on her tail and trying to figure out what her overall plan is and what the end game is to her, to all the stuff that she's doing with Ravonna Renslayer right now. And they're kind of essentially laying the seeds for Kang the Conqueror, or Victor Timely, however you want to refer to him in this episode, to discover the technology and the science behind the time travel and the way that he's able to make all these discoveries down the line. They're kind of laying the seeds for him to for all these things to take place in the timeline in order for them to create the sacred timeline once again, and to get rid of all those branches and all that stuff, and to have Ravonna Renslayer, in the words of Miss Minutes, take her rightful place at the side of Kang the Conqueror and be the ruler of the sacred timeline and whatnot. And Ravonna Renslayer is all in on this, and that was one of the elements of this season. This episode that I really loved the most was everything going on with Ravonna Renslayer and everything that Gugu Mbatha-Raw, the actress, was bringing to the role, and really getting to see her reintroduction in the season as well. I thought was very strong, and it really all starts off really awesome with this episode and her whole dynamic of the questions and she has for Miss Minutes, but goes along with the ride anyway. And I really just like that opening scene, and that really set the stage for everything that was to come. We pick back up with Loki and Mobius at the TVA, and they go down to to talk to Ouroboros about everything going on and to get his opinion on how they can find Miss Minutes, track her down with the temp pad, and fix this loom issue so that way they could restore these branch timelines that have just got obliterated by all those rogue TVA agents that are still trying to hold to what they believe in and what they were brainwashed to believe in with all the sacred timeline and the timekeepers and all that stuff. They're still all in on that. So now Loki and Mobius are trying to figure out how they can figure this issue out and pick up the pieces. And, they have a really funny interaction with Ouroboros. And I'm loving everything that Ki-Hu Kwan is bringing to the role with that character. He is just so funny, so entertaining. And then they finally, after getting help from Casey, I believe his name is, the guy working the front desk with B-19 and everything, after they get a little help from him, they finally discover the location of the temp pad where Ravonna Renslayer, excuse me, and they figure out that she's in the late 1800s, 1893 to be exact. And we pick up with the fun dynamic that I was highlighting earlier between Loki and Mobius and them kind of settling into the time period and them kind of, going incognito and fitting in and also trying to figure out where Ravonna and Miss Minutes are. And now they're also trying to come in contact with another variant of Kang the Conqueror in order to use his temporal aura in order to fix the flume, in order to fix the overall issue of getting all timelines in all existence as we know it getting wiped out incursion style. So now they're hot on the trail of that and also trying to stay ahead of Sylvie because she is completely against this plan, of course, and we'll come back around to that later. And as they start to settle in and they find this little scientific demonstration being held by a Victor Timely, and that is where we are reintroduced to Jonathan Majors as now a new variant version of the Kang the Conqueror character, Victor Timely, and his whole discovery and looks like what might be an early version of either the technology he used in Quantumania earlier this year in the Ant-Man sequel, or might be maybe part of the early technology he used to establish the flume that we're all focusing on in Loki Season 2, which might be the more likely thing here. Between it, we're not sure exactly how much they're going to tie into everything else going on. That has not necessarily been the MCU's strong suit as of late, but Loki has been one of the stronger threads in that regard post Phase 4, or post Phase 3, I should say. So we'll have to wait and see kind of where that goes. But this was all interesting to me. I absolutely love the sequence with Jonathan Majors as Victor Timely and seeing Ravonna Renslayer watch the whole thing and how Loki and Mobius are right there. And Mobius doesn't even buy into the threat that Loki has been presenting to him and been warning him about this entire time, because this version is very unassuming, seems a bit naive, and seems completely like the polar opposite to both versions of Kang the Conqueror that we've seen throughout the MCU, but especially to the one that Loki was warned about and was so worried about at the cliffhanger of Season 1. So we've only seen that because we're the audience, but only Ant-Man and the Wasp and those people have come in contact, and Janet Van Dyne, that is, also the original Wasp, have come in contact with the more evil, badass version of Kang the Conqueror we're all kind of coming to expect from Secret Wars and all that other stuff. And as Victor Timely is giving his little presentation or whatever, he gets some straight up boy with the capital B getting thrown at him from all these white dudes in the audience and all that stuff. And then this guy's trying to get him to partner up with him in order to use his technology. And he's like, no thanks, bro. I don't believe in partners. So Victor Timely kind of goes on his way. And now Loki and Mobius are trying to track him down and get back on his tail because now they realize that Ravonna is right there and about to get their guy. Mobius even says so. And now they're in a game of cat and mouse trying to get Victor Timely for the greater good. And as we're doing all that, Sophie ends up pulling up on this fool, and then we jump back over to the TVA as well with B-19 and them tracking down the location of the temp pad. And then Loki ends up running into Victor Timely and tries to get him to come with them, but of course that doesn't end up working out. And Sylvie gets all in the mix, and this is where some of my problems start to come in for the season as a whole, and especially in this episode primarily as well. I'm not really loving what they're doing with Sylvie this season. I think it's been getting very repetitive. It's getting very one note, and at the same time, I feel like it just there's not much there to the character this season, where last season I feel like she was much more interesting and compelling, while still having some of the same character traits and some of the same flaws and whatnot. I do think it's getting a little more one note than I would prefer this season, but that's just my opinion, but hey. And then you get Sylvie and Loki over here arguing about what to do with Victor Timely and how they should proceed with the situation. Loki's like, yo, we need to spare him, We don't need to kill him. We need his temporal aura in order to save all the multiverse and all of existence as we know it. We need the TVA. We need some kind of line of defense against Kang the Conqueror or any other threat like this. Sylvie's just completely against it, and to me, to a very annoying and ignorant degree that feels a little out of character, where it's like, well, if you want to have that timeline in home that you love so much, you gotta have this version of him work with you. This version hasn't done anything. You can't hold every version of you accountable for what the other one did. Vice versa for the Lokis. And that's one very hypocritical aspect I don't think the character's really getting into right now. And then you got Miss Minutes over here making herself, after making herself look like an old school kind of thing, because there's been rumors of a ghost going around that kind of tipped off Loki and Mobius in the beginning to finding her location, to kind of tracking down her and Ravonna Renslayer's location and whatnot. And then, but yeah, man. So as this continues on, they end up getting Ravonna and the Timekeepers end up getting Victor Timely and slipping out on him and getting away, making their escape. And Loki and Sylvie are very pissed off about it and trying to figure out what they're going to do now to try to save their existence and everything like that. And this is when the Timekeeper and I mean the Timekeeper, sorry. This is where Miss Minutes and Ravonna Renslayer are hanging out with Victor Timely, and Ravonna starts to get to know him, and you start to see a little bit of a chemistry there between the two and a little bit of attraction, I feel like, getting sparked there as well, which hints at their overall relationship, which is completely canon to the comics. So it'll be interesting to see if they go in that direction or not. But I really, really dug how they started to kind of explore those aspects of that aspect of their character, and we're kind of teasing that and everything. And you got to have some character moments with them a little bit, and got to see them get to know each other and interact with each other and stuff like that. And with this different version, getting to interact with her where she never really interacted with He Who Remains, that was very interesting as well, to kind of see the man behind it all, and for her to get this different look at him that no one else has really seen before other than our boys Loki and Mobius. So very interesting stuff all around there. But then Miss Minute starts getting all creepy and stalkerish and all that, and seems to be showing some jealousy towards Ravonna, starting to get close to Victor Timely in this way. And she ends up dumping her when she falls asleep onto a spare boat and leaves her in the middle of the ocean while Ravonna tries to catch up back to him and has to row herself. It has to row the boat in order to do so. And then Miss Minutes does that long enough just to get her alone with Victor Timely in order to try to entice him into giving her a body where He Who Remains, or the previous versions that she's interacted with in the past, never would do so. So that was another very interesting thing, seeing the AI of Miss Minutes actually wanting a physical body to inhabit and all that crazy stuff. So that was really, really interesting, and I thought that was the much more intriguing part. That was a little confusing, but also very intriguing, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have a plan overall for it throughout the season. So it'll be very cool to see kind of where that goes. But overall, I was really, really digging that aspect of the episode as well. Ravonna ends up catching back up to him and everything like that, and doing her thing. And let me go ahead and check my notes here. And then Ravonna catches up to him and has the freaking little stick thing that's going to be able to prune him and knock him out of existence. And she's kind of like, all right, everybody back the fuck up. Don't nobody get any closer. I'm going to maintain order. This is what I've dedicated millennia to, my life to. I don't care where my life was on the timeline. This is what I'm doing. I've dedicated myself to the cause, and I'm seeing it through, whether I got to wipe him out to do it or not. But y'all ain't getting in the way. And and it's just so interesting with Ravonna Renslayer, how she's just so committed to that now and just doesn't want to change up anything, similar to how Mobius doesn't really want to change what he's doing either, but in a much less aggressive way. You know what I'm saying? In a much less, evil way, or whatever, however you want to put it. So I just think that whole parallel between the characters and Mobius trying to get her back to the side of good, if you will, I think is just so interesting, man. Just seeing the breakdown of their relationship as friends and as colleagues, between season 1 and now. You really feel the weight of it, the way that Owen Wilson and Gugu and Bathara are able to play it off, man. It's just actors and everything. And just the chemistry of all these actors on screen in this episode is off the chain. So that's another aspect of this I definitely want to highlight as well. And with Ravonna getting the slip on these guys, and Sylvie kind of sparing him, if you will, and with Ravonna kind of getting the slip on these fools, and with her ending up at the spot where Sylvie left He Who Remains at the end of time, it's going to be very interesting to see after that cliffhanger where things are going to pick up with both Loki and Mobius and Sylvie, as well as, and probably even more so, with Ravonna Renslayer and Miss Minutes, and to see where he ended up trapping her at, what happened to Victor Timely, and how this is all going to tie in together. like I said, wasn't necessarily my favorite episode of the show, but it definitely was probably the strongest episode of the season so far. I definitely enjoyed it, but thought that there could have been some improvements. And I thought some of the stuff with Miss Minutes and all that is a little unclear of what her overall goal is. If she was just using Ravonna Renslayer and wanted to ditch her in just that instant. I don't know if that was a temporary thing. I'm not sure exactly how this all ties in together, what the overarching plan is yet. But so far, I'm really digging the season. It's not quite as good as season 1, like I've mentioned before, but I'm still digging it. And I'm very, very curious to see where episode 4 and beyond is going to go, because I've heard a lot of big hype in the early kind of previews and reviews for the season of the first 4 episodes. People say 4 is kind of the big one of the season so far out of what we know, because no one's seen 5 or 6. So I'm very interested to see that this week, hopefully with no freaking issues or anything getting in the way. I can get that out by Friday. Friday night the latest. So look out for that episode 4 review this week for Loki, and we're going to have some more horror content for the spooky season. But until next time, thank you for checking out this latest episode. We appreciate each and every one of you watching and listening to any of our content. We'll catch you on the flip side. Peace out.